Welcome to yet another episode of Go Running Talks. My name is Lena. I'm the founder of Go Running Tours, and today I'm joined by my longtime colleague, Lapo, who's our running guide in Florence. And I think also, Lapo, you're the true face of Go Running Tours. But instead of me introducing you, why didn't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your life in Florence?
Okay, nice to meet you, everybody. I'm Lapo. I'm from Florence, born and raised in Florence, and even my name Lapo is typically Florentine. We've Go Running Tours now is about 9 years. It's going to be 9 years in a few days, and I am really happy of the choice I made of joining this network because running is something I like, and running with people coming from all over the world is something I like really, really very much.
Excellent, and I have to say I'm really happy that you joined as well, Lapo. It's been a fun 9 years. I'm hoping for many more. So before we sort of talk about your running tours in Florence and some of the memories you have from that, I would love to hear a little bit more about just you as a runner. How long you've been running for? How did you get into running?
Well, I used to do athletics when I was a child, really tiny, till I think 10 or something like that. And then during the high school, I made some athletics always on track, quarter distances, 800 meters, a mile, this kind of things. And then during the university, I gave up. But at the end of the university, I gave up smoking. And that was the twist, because I have substituted one kind of addiction, smoking, with another kind of addiction, running. Because nowadays, really running for me is an addiction, but it's very much healthier than smoking it. So happy of the choice I made. And nowadays I'm really happy that also my son has never started smoking. So, and he's a sporty guy. So the challenge between smoking and sport has been won on both sides.
Fantastic, excellent. And you're also actually you're a big part of the running community in Florence as well. You do the park run, you run the local races. I believe you're in a club as well. Tell us about the sort of the community in Florence, the local running community.
Yeah, we have a pretty nice running movement in Florence, and we have a full marathon each year and a half marathon in spring. We have park run and a lot of running clubs. And the running clubs are, I'm part of the running club, of course, and are nice because on each Sunday morning they organize their own race. So from Sunday to Sunday, you go in different places. Many of the places I put in my tours were taken from these races. And so you discover different places, you find with local runners, and as we are Italians, so a little bit food fans, there is also a very nice competition between the running clubs who organizes the best refreshment after the race. So you have homemade cakes, sometimes even pasta. But pasta at 10:30 in the morning is something I cannot eat. Is people having pasta also at after the race. So it becomes also a social thing.
Well, I mean, someone from Denmark hearing about a race with Italian delicacies afterwards, that sounds pretty amazing. Would you recommend it would be a race to travel for, a local race in Florence?
Well, there are really, really a lot of them. We have in Florence one of the oldest night runs in Italy, that is Notturna di San Giovanni, that it's in June. And it's nice because in June is already pretty hot in Florence. And around the 24th of June, you run in the night around the city center of Florence. That is so very much a traditional run, but it's really very much participated, and it's nice. But then I think any kind of a race around Florence, it's okay, really.
Yeah, I could imagine. Fantastic. And then we stay with running a little bit. Do you have a moment where you think that was really special? Do you have a best running memory? Not so much with the tours, but more you as a runner. Do you have one memory that sort of stands out?
Well, yeah, there is. Well, of course, it's my personal best in the marathon. I've done several marathons, but what was nice is how it came out, this thing, because it was after COVID in 2020 21. I have well, I was well trained, of course, but also I had a lot of friends joining me in different parts of the course of the marathon, so that I could try to keep the same pace all the marathon long. It's the only time in my life where I could do what theory of marathon says. So you should run the second half faster than the first half, but it's really theory. But in that case, I did it. So
Well
I'm
done.
still very happy of that. Of course, the last meters with one of my best running buddies of that marathon, because of course she wasn't in with a big number, so she had to get off of the trace a few meters before the goal line and the finish line. So she was continuously shouting at me, "Go, go, go, go!" I mean, yeah, this is really, really a great memory.
Excellent. So the combination of running a fast time and then with your friends, that's the memory.
Yeah,
That
and
sounds
sharing it
incredible.
with the people I also share our runs. It's
Yeah,
not only a mine memory, but it's a shared memories. That
yeah.
is, yeah, really nice.
Incredible. And then I don't know if you want to share if you have a worst running memory. I think many runners have one incident where you think this, I'm never going to run again. It just stays with you. Do you have a worst running memory you can share?
Yes, of course. It has to do with marathon also that. It was a few years before, in 2019, I think. And I was running a marathon in Rimini. My training sessions were very, very good. So I was feeling really well. And then the marathon, on the day of the marathon, it was too hot, really too hot. And the marathon course was really boring, but terribly boring. A long way straight on the one way and the way back. It was something that, when you run a marathon, you have some moments of crisis. But then you can, look around, talk with the runners around you. And in this case, it was really, really tremendous. I had one moment of crisis, the second moment of crisis, and at the third moment of crisis, I had to stop. And that's the only time I never finished a marathon. Only once in my life, and it wasn't my first marathon. I already ran a few, so
Mhm.
it was something, it's not really, but yeah, for a few days, I was really disappointed.
I can definitely understand that. Also, when you run a couple of marathons, and sometimes we feel maybe a little bit invincible as well. But that's the joy of running, and especially the marathon. It can still be tricky, even as an experienced runner. You can get into some hard periods.
Of
Excellent.
course, it's teaching you something because you cannot, think, okay, I have done several marathons, everything is going to get with no effort. No, no, it's not like that. Each marathon needs an effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. There's one thing, Lapo, that you've mentioned for many years now. We've been colleagues for quite a few years, and all through those years, you have sometimes shared pictures, especially when you're on holiday, and you kept mentioning. Remember in the beginning, I was like, "What is it about?" You kept mentioning this is running poetry, and it's something you keep talking about, and I find the concept so interesting. And when you mention it, I think, oh, this must be incredible to be in a running poetry world. Tell me a little bit more about the concept of running poetry. How do you think about it? What makes you think something is running poetry?
Well, this definition has started a little bit like a joke with my running friends, but it has something to do, running is not only physical exercises. For me, it's also a form of meditation. So you go running because you are angry, because you are stressed, because many, many situations. Running lets you get back to, good, uh, yeah, good feeling and something also calming a little bit yourself. For me, running is something absolutely natural, something we all have done when we were a child. We just start running and we feel happy because we are running. And running in a beautiful place or in a special moment, then sometimes really becomes something like a moment of wonder. So in Italian, we say meraviglia. It's really a moment when something is exceptionally beauty, but it's also something that you feel happy with yourself and what is happening. That for me is running poetry. And it's strange because it can be many, many different things. For example, of course, when you run in a very nice place, peaceful, you're alone, so you feel like you're really in contact with the environment around you. Can be also another thing. For example, when we run these local races early in the morning in winter, can be really, really cold. And then you have all these bodies of people running, and you have the steam coming out of the bodies, and you have this cloud of steam of people running in it. Also, this for me is running poetry, something poetical in a way. That is, yeah, almost what I mean when I say. But running can be also poetic.
Yeah, yeah. I really agree. I never thought about it until you started using the words, and also I don't know whether you remember we made playlists where all the guides from around the world had to submit a song, and I put on this playlist one time I was out running, and it was one song after the others, pretty upbeat, pretty motivational, and so on. And I remember being at the beach, and then suddenly a classical song comes on, which seemed very random. And I was at the beach, I was thinking, who put on a classical song, or a melody? And then I came back, and Lapo, it was you, and it all made sense. And also now when you talk about the meditation and so on, it seems like the way you view running and the way you approach it and the way you share it as well, it is somewhat of a poetic experience, and also with a different angle than that I'm at least used to, but I think also many of our colleagues are used to as well.
It's my way.
Fantastic. Excellent. So let's move on a little bit to the running tours. So you've been doing the running tours for many, many years. We've been colleagues for many years. I think along with Sidla and Brechene, you are one of the veterans of the company, and you're loved by the guests who gives you 5-star reviews again and again and again. You are loved by your colleagues because you have a great team spirit, but also many people write or at least say to me, hey, I want to be like Lapo. What is it that Lapo does that's so amazing? We just want to be like Lapo. And you're coming up to a little bit of a milestone in Florence now, in that you're coming up to your 1,000th guest that you'll be running with. Tell us a little bit about this, and also how you're going to celebrate it.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about how to celebrate it, but I have to do something. I really don't know, but I also would like to make some kind of celebration with my teammates because in Florence we are a team. I'm the one who guides the most number of tours, but also my son has joined the group, Elisa, uh, and others. So, because of course I can run a couple of tours a day, but if you want to make me run 2 long tours in a day, I cannot do it. I'm an old guy, as you can see from my hair. So yeah, it's really a very, very nice milestone, and also because what I like the most of running the tours is that we are runners, so we share a passion. So after 10, 15 minutes, is just like running with a running body that is coming from the other part of the world. These 9 years, I've run with people of every age, from 16 to more than 80. So I have got also people who run at 81 or something like that, and from every continent in the world. I think I'm not losing of the continents. And every time it's something, a connection is established between me and the guest. So it's something that I really like of doing this. I don't know why the other guys want to be like me. I'm not a tall and handsome guy.
I can maybe explain a little bit. So, what people, the listeners or viewers, don't know is that we have a Slack channel where we share whenever we've been running with guests, and a lot of times the guests we mention the guest, and they ran in Copenhagen, they ran in Paris, they ran in London, and then now they run in Florence. And then after 3 days, we have a review coming in, which is totally anonymous. And then, the reviews, of course, also are public. And they come in, and the guests are super excited about the tour. And it's like, hey, we ran in Copenhagen, we ran in Rome, we ran in Paris, and then we ran in Florence, by far the best tour yet. And the rest of us is like, what's the magic of Lapo? We're doing our best here running. So I think everyone is looking to you, Lapo, to get the same praise. Of course, most other guides get also 5-star reviews, but it seems like you have an extra level, and also sort of the way you can connect with the guests, and then of course also you have an incredible city to show.
Yeah, that what I always say, I am a Florentine, a real Florentine, so I can say also the nasty things about Florentines. And people from Florence tend to be a little bit too much proud of what we have here. There's nothing we have done yesterday, it has been done in centuries before us. But the dimension of Florence is really not that big. So with a 10K, you can see really a lot of things because things are so concentrated. As a little, Florence is a touristy city. So as all this touristy city tend to have some places, but everybody goes to that places. And then they almost never go outside of that path. And if you go outside of that path, you can find in Florence as many beautiful things as in the more touristy path. So probably that is something also that has something great to do with the success of my tours. And maybe also the fact that my first job is to be an architect, so I speak a lot about the architecture that you see around when you run. And it's something that is really, really interesting in Florence because you have so many beautiful architectures and also experimental architecture of the past.
Yeah.
The dome of the cathedral, for example, but as many, many, many others. So yeah, probably this point of view, personal point of view, is also part of the success.
I agree. And then I think it's also because you're a really nice guy. Let's not forget that Lapo as well. So with almost now 1,000 guests, many, many tours, I don't know if you can share, do you have one or two memories from the many tours that you've done that sort of stands out? And this can both be good or bad or fun, anything. Does anything stand out?
Yeah, well, there are a couple. One, it was really fun, let's say a little bit embarrassing in the moment, because it was a young couple and the girl booked the tour as a surprise for her boyfriend, or I don't know if it was already husband or still boyfriend. But when I went to the hotel to get this young couple, the boyfriend wasn't happy at all of this idea of running for an hour and a half. And they were discussing pretty hard. So I tried to keep a very professional thing and saying, okay, no, don't worry, we adapt the pace to your needs. We do as many stops as you like. And I was running, and the girl was running on my side, and the boy was a little bit back and bubbling still for the first 1, 2, 3 kilometers. And I was saying, first time is going to be really, really hard. Then, fortunately, at the end, probably because of the places, because of the views, because of running is also a therapy. They were happy together. So at the end, the boyfriend told me, I'm sorry, I want to apologize if at the start I was a little bit unkind to you. I didn't mean to be unkind, but it was too much surprised by the idea of my girlfriend. So this was really, really curious because I said, okay, not something that never happened. This actually only once. And then one of the I have really a lot of nice memories.
Yeah,
Really,
I can
really a
imagine.
lot of nice memories. One is this couple of a lady and a man from, I think they are in New England, probably, but they are close to Boston. And they came running with me when they already were in their 70s. And 5 years later, they came running with me again and he was already in his 80s. And on the second run, they booked a cake. I tried to make a different path because they already had done the 10K on the first time. And then when we were close to the hotel, I said, I didn't show you that park that is nearby here, but now we have already run the cake. And they told me, oh, we can run some kilometers more, some miles more in their case. And so we ended making something like 10 miles instead of 10K. And they were still really, really so nice that sometimes they send me messages, letters saying the lady was the first one in the age category in the half marathon. So we keep in touch. Very nice. Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in your 80s and be able to do another 6 kilometers without blinking? That's a goal in itself, I think.
Oh no, my goal is even harder, but my goal is to run a full marathon in the 80s. I don't know
Really?
if I can reach it, but I'm trying to keep it to keep fit to reach that goal.
I'm sure you will. I have no doubt. So, Lapo, is there, I mean, we see again and again, we see these very beautiful pictures from your tours in Florence. Usually it's, of course, early morning. Is there one stop on a certain tour at a certain time that you just think is magical?
Well, probably there are a few. It has to do also with weather conditions, the season, and everything. There is one that is almost always uh, really special, and that is why the 10K tour is called a Run with a View,
Mm.
because there is a place that is pretty well known as Piazzale Michelangelo. It's a very nice viewpoint over the town, but that is really well known. Then, after Piazzale Michelangelo, a few 100 meters after, I have found a place that I've been knowing that place for a long, long time in my life, that has really a view that it's a painting of Florence. Also, painters go there to paint the portrait of Florence. And that place, early in the morning, especially when at sunrise, it's really, really special. A few years ago, I was running with a group of doctors from Alaska. In
Mhm.
September, they booked the tour at 6, I think. And I told them at 6, it's going to be still dark. They said, yeah, but we have a congress, so we cannot run later on. And we arrived in that place right at the sunrise. So the roofs of Florence are made of brick tiles, so
Mhm.
they are red. And all the town was painted in red by the sunrise. So one of the doctors took a picture with his phone and said, you have to send me that because his phone was better than mine. And you have to send me that because if I wouldn't have been there, I would have thought it was touched with Photoshop. Instead, it was the real color of that view. So that is pretty magic. I always go
Excellent.
running there, also when I don't have tours.
Excellent. And then you mentioned briefly that your son Gio, he's now starting to guide. He's actually joined the team. We can also see on Slack and in our systems that he's getting raving reviews. So really in his footsteps here. But I'm curious, how did it start? How did he get into it? Was it one desperate moment where you couldn't find a guide for a tour and you were like, you have to do it? Or did he see you doing it and then he got an interest and now he's guiding it to us? Tell us about a little bit about this.
Well, Bo is 22 now, so he's studying at the university. He did the higher school with languages, so he has learned English, French, and German. And I think now his English is almost better than mine, and so is really, really good in learning languages. And then, as I started to do the university, I wanted to do some work. And well, I went to to work as a waiter in a restaurant and everything. And I said, okay, you are fit. You can speak pretty good English. I'll give you all the information you have to give to the clients, to guests. And also, Joe is really a nice guy. So, because something that is important in doing this is that you have to be something that is open to people. You don't have to be shy. You don't have to be. So, and attitude is something that Joe has. So, I'm really happy that he's got nice reviews, and now is he's feeling just like me. Yes, he's happy to do this, even if wa- waking up very early in the morning is something still isn't the best thing for him. But then when he comes back and says, "No, no, no, it was fun. Really, it was fun." So it's a nice way to earn some money and also have a relation with people coming from all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's great that the family empire in Florence is growing, and I love the fact that he's joining and starting to guide the tour as well. I met him in Copenhagen. I think he 14 then, I think, or 15
Yeah,
when you
I
were in
think, yeah,
Copenhagen. So it's a
something
while
like
ago.
that. Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah. He
great.
was quarter. Now it's this tool. I put a picture on socials a few days ago, and he was standing on my side like just like he was a dad and I was a baby, something like this.
Moving away, Lapo, from the running tours, then if people are traveling to Florence, there's, as you mentioned, there's the center, there's all these things to see. You just mentioned this one spot to watch the sunrise, which is pretty incredible. Is there anything else that you would recommend people to do in Florence that they probably don't know that they should do? So a little bit of a hidden thing or a local recommendation.
Well, yeah, I have already mentioned that Florence is a touristy town. This makes the town look similar in a way because you have always the same kind of places. The food hall where you can have Chinese food together with Italian food and something a little bit too global and not really typical. So my suggestion is trying to avoid that places and try to find other places a little bit outside of the main path. Also on food. So for example, everybody knows Fiorentina, the T-bone steak, and the city center is now becoming some kind of a steakhouses, one after the other, after the other. So if you are not a vegetarian, try tripa instead, or lampredotto, that is the stomach of the cow. That definitely less rated than a T-bone steak, but it's something traditional of
Yeah.
Florence. So you can have a sandwich of lampredotto, but it's something. It's funny. I always talk about this thing when I do my running tours, and it depends where the guests come from. If they are from Texas, they are okay with it because in Texas they have a lot of cows. So if they come from other places of the United States, but also Europe, they say, doesn't sound that good. Or, for example, also in pastries and this kind of things, for example, avoid the pastries that are always the same, really all the world around. But it is pan di ramerino, that is really traditional. It's a bread with rosemary inside and
Okay.
dried grapes. It's kind of strange, really strange taste, but it's something typical of Florence. So still in Florence, you can find something typical, but you have to look for it. If you want to do also the things that all the other people do, you're welcome. But trying to find a different way to visit the city. It's interesting because also the different places out of the main path are interesting and you can still find some real Florentine doesn't speak that much of English. Instead, in the center of Florence nowadays, you hear more English than Italian.
Excellent. Great suggestions. It's interesting. Whenever I speak to the guys, I think 80% of the local advice is about food. And I think there's something with runners and food that there's a natural connection as well. A lot of our guests are very much into food, the local food, and also the good restaurants. I don't know, do you find the same, Lapo?
Yes, yes. Also because, you know, when after a run, nice breakfast, this is something that you really enjoy. So what I say also to my guests every time they say that's Florence outside of the city center, but it starts immediately to be hilly. So you have to be a little bit trained if you want to reach now the nice viewpoints over the town. When I run the way up, I always say, okay, consider that you can have 100 grams more pasta after this run with this uphill. And yeah, still food in Florence is pretty nice. Almost everywhere.
Fantastic. Maybe that's why our tours in Italy are so popular, that everyone is trying to beat the bad conscience that they know they'll get when they arrive in your cities and they start eating your amazing food. So the last question, Lapo, and that's something I ask also everyone on that I speak to on Go Running Talks, is going back to running. Do you have one advice, or what is your best advice for a runner? And it can be for a beginner, for an elite runner, for just a regular runner, for all runners. Do you have one advice that you'd like to share?
Well, now it's really long way of running in my life. What I really have appreciated was a seasoned runner that told me, rush, never rush. Running is something that is really important in my life, and it is also given, you know, my personal character has changed while running because you can give yourself whatever goal you want, but the important thing is to be consistent, but never rush to reach that goal, because rushing will lead to injuries, will lead to disappointment, will lead to a bad manner and a bad relation with running. I also train some people when they ask me, I train some guys, and I always say, they come to me and they say, I want to run a marathon. And I always say, no, I won't train you for a marathon. What's your longest distance? 10K. Okay. So let's start to think we run from 10K to 20 to half marathon. Then after a year or after a few half marathons, we start to think of a marathon. Never rush, because in this way you let your body also get in the habit and grow your capabilities in time. As my personal experience, let's say, let's hope that this keeps true for the next years. I haven't had major injuries or major problems with running doing this way. So always trying to keep consistency, a stable thing, and growing slowly, step by step.
Yeah. That's a great advice. I noticed one thing that sort of piqued my interest a little bit. You said running has also changed my character. And one thing is, of course, not rushing and sort of looking at the long term. Is there any other way where you think now, okay, you quit smoking, but is there any other aspects where you think running has changed your character?
No, definitely self-esteem. So, because, you know, when you put a goal and you reach it, then you realize that you are capable of almost impossible things. When I started running more than 20 years ago, I was struggling to get to a 10K. Now have done more than 24 marathons. And I wouldn't have thought that it was possible for me to run a marathon. But it's also something that changes the way you are approaching also difficult moments in life. So it's a way that, yeah, really lets your character be more strong also in some occasions in life. As I've already told you, I'm not that young anymore. in life there are good moments, but also very, very bad moments. And probably running has helped me also in very bad moments because of that. So it's something you can, how do you say, deal with sufferance. Because running a marathon, it's always suffering. People may say, "Oh no, I'm smiling to 30 to 42 kilometers." For me, in my experience, it's not like this. Running a marathon, it's always suffering. But this has helped me also in my life in dealing with sufferance, because suffering is there, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Excellent. Thanks for that insight. Great. I have nothing else, Lapo. Thanks for spending the last 30 minutes or so with me, and for sharing Florence, sharing your life, your passion for running, and of course sharing your running tours. Also, a big thank you, Lapo, for being my colleague for this many years. Hopefully, many more to come. But thank you for joining. I hope people will go to Florence and run with you.
Yeah, I'll be ready to host them. So nobody knows who's gonna be with the guest 1000 because it happens to be a last minute booking coming the day before. So that is also a problem. Organizing something because you know how it is. Our guests that are booking the evening and p.m. for the morning after 7. So probably I don't know. We will manage anyway.
Fantastic. Maybe we should make a competition that there's a certain prize if people can sort of be the 1,000 guests. So you got start getting tours at all random times just to see if people can sort of be the number 1,000. We'll have to think about that. Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Lapo. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye bye.